This is the Global Broadcasting Service, serving remote outposts since 1928.
Hi, everyone. Welcome aboard the Walt Disney World Express monorail.
Caramba, we have something really big for you today.
Welcome, foolish mortals.
Now then, hang on to them hats and glasses, because this here's the wildest ride in the wilderness.
This is the DBC Pod with Phil Schoen and Jason Dodge. Hi, friends. Welcome to this week's pod. This is the show for the week of January 27th, 2025. And Phil, I just realized that if I screw up, I can't stop the recording and go and redo the intro. So, I'm stuck with the good and the bad intros. That's just future note for us for a live show.
So double check the dates is the point.
I was eyeing it as the intro was going through. So that's what it was. We've got a really long show today. I think we've got some really excellent topics that aren't just listing out news and stuff like that. We've got a bunch of stuff. Stella Nova opened up, so we watched a bunch of videos, so we're going to have our own opinions on it. We're going to kind of tie it to Disney a little bit. We have construction updates, namely Muppets, which we really messed up the prediction for that one. Phil's going to go into that a little bit later. We had a little bit of a debate on Discord about hoppers and non-hoppers, so we're going to talk about how that personally affects you and I's touring styles and what fits our families. So we're going to talk about that. And Wheezy had a really great topic that I said I was going to steal, but then you stole it first and put it in the show notes. And it's must-do food from each park for first timers. So I think that's a really good twist because he's talking about it from a perspective of a travel agent and what to suggest for some new fucks. So I'm really looking forward to that. But first, Phil, do you want to hear a dining plan story?
I do. I love a good dining plan story.
It involves lots of spreadsheets, right? So I'm going to try to keep this short. So I booked a friend of ours who's spending 3 days at Port Orleans Riverside and then 6 nights at the Grand Floridian, right? So the Grand Floridian section, she wanted to do the Disney, the quick service dining plan. So that's what we booked originally. So I said, she keeps saying, I want to do the Disney dining plan. I want to upgrade. This is not free dining. This is full out of pocket, right? So there's no specials here. And I'm like, well, it doesn't really make sense. She picked out a lot of two credit restaurants. So I'm like, it's really, it doesn't work out mathematically. So, but you know what? Let's check. Sit down with your husband and go through all the different restaurants, pick out what you might want to eat, total them all up. And she did. She brought me a list yesterday. We sat down. I opened up a spreadsheet and we went through everything. Her choices were in order: Citrico's, 1900 Park Fair, Narcoossee's, Cinderella's Royal Table, Ohana Breakfast, Homecoming, and Space 220.
Wow.
Okay. That was her. She wanted to do meals every single day. She only has 3 park days for her trip. So she's doing a lot of relaxation, water park type stuff, that type of thing. So I'm like, well, that's not going to make sense. Doing that. So we laid it out, and the cost of all the food before, whatever, and including out of pocket, was about $1,700, for the full week. Right. Just to remind everybody out there, Citrico, Cinderella's Royal Table, and Narcoossee are 2 dining credits, right? She has 6, right? 6 nights there. So she has 6 credits. So in order to upgrade, because she's got 3 kids under 10, and her husband, to upgrade from quick service to the dining plan was $580, right? So long story short, after adding this all up, believe it or not, upgrading to the dining plan saved her $200.
Wow.
Using 2 credits for Cinderella's Royal Table, 2 credits for Narcoossee's, because believe it or not, they picked the surf and turf, which is $89, which counts on the dining plan.
I mean, that's what you got to do when you're using credits is if the things that are the most expensive on the meal are what you're going to order anyway or want to order. You got to do that. Yeah.
But even if we didn't use that and we just went with Citrico's, which is the average plate is $40 or $50, it still worked out in her favor, right? So it was a $20 difference mostly in any case. And they didn't really pick all the desserts either. So they could save if they were picking more desserts because the husband wasn't eating dessert, whatever that type of thing. So I was literally surprised. Now, granted, I told her, if you weren't picking some of the most expensive places to eat on property and instead used all your credits, then you go from spending $1,700, or you go from spending an extra $900 just on the sit down meals to only spending I think it was like $200. So like there's an $800 savings if you don't choose 2 credits. But
Right.
this is what she wanted to do. She was going to do this anyway. This was money spent not because she had the dining plan, but because she was going to do it anyway, right?
Yeah.
So ultimately it worked out for 2 credit sit-down meals where she's only having 4 sit-down meals because she has 2 credits for Narcoozy, 2 credits for Cinderella's Royal Table, which is darn expensive. And that was the most expensive meal out of all of those, by the way, with all their tablets, because it was $280 and Narcoozy's was like $250, right? Granted, 3 kids under the age of 10 ordering from kids menus, which helps the cost, right? Last year she could be doing this, so she's taking advantage. I mean, I think if you have kids under 10, this is a great thing to do, right? I think that the dining plan really saves on that. It's except because they're going to homecoming later that week, and the kids are like, I know they're going to want these certain dishes, and we're like $30. So like, you can't get that on the dining plan with the kids one with the kids. And so that being said, I thought it was interesting that the dining plan does work in certain configurations. So don't poo-poo it.
Well, the big thing is that that's how they wanted to eat, and then they're applying the dining plan versus doing the dining plan and then trying to like kind of chase the credits and try to like
So it worked out. So I thought that was interesting. Anyway, going to our opening film, the Stella Nova. So you watched these before I did. So you were somewhat planning potentially a stay at one of these locations in trip in August. So why don't you set us up here?
Yeah. So at Epic Universe, which is opening in May, there are 3 resorts that are going to be considered, I guess, coded to being epic resorts. One of them is Helios, which is the one that's kind of like in the theme park, in the back of the theme park, and then which is going to be more of a premier type hotel. And then there are 2 what they call prime value, sort of comparable to a value at Disney for people not familiar. And they are at the front of the kind of the land, but still walking distance to the park. So there's no values at Disney that you can walk to a park from.
No.
And one of them opened on January 21st. The other one opens on March 22nd or something like in March. And the first one is called Stella Nova, and is sort of space themed. And the other one I think is called Stella Luna or something Luna. It's
Terra Luna?
Terra Luna. Yes. Yeah. So it's more like kind of Earth based with theming. But I was really interested in this because, like I said, for August, we are planning on hoping to do a couple of days at Universal beforehand to check out Epic Universe. And I was thinking we could stay at one of these because the pricing seems pretty good and it's kind of a new resort and stuff like that. So I was really intrigued to see like what people thought about it. One thing to keep in mind is all the hotels are operated by Lowe's over at Universal. They're not operated by Universal directly. Obviously, they're tied in and connected, and they help with the theming and stuff like that. And there were characters on for opening day and stuff like that. So one thing to keep in mind, though, when I was watching a lot of these videos, they're like, oh my God, I can't believe how this brand new resort, blah, blah, and it's only $150 a night. One thing I realized is they were using a Florida resident special to get $150 a night. When we were looking in August, it's more like $230 a night, like $228 a night. So it's maybe not quite as cheap as some people were saying. They do have a special where you get 30% off, but you have to stay 4 nights or longer, which is not what we were planning to do. So just thought I did look at some comparisons on the same days as we were there. So $228 for Stella Nova. However, looking at things like at Disney, where do I have these in here? Helios is more like 461 or something like that. So that's going to be a lot more. Compared to Disney, Pop is running at 182 a night, but with the discount is about 154. So it is a little bit cheaper than staying at this new one. All Star Sports is like 135, 108 with the current discounts. Coronado Springs is 273. CBR is like 317. So, it's kind of the values at Disney with the deals going on are a little bit cheaper. So just keep that in mind. Sometimes I saw a lot of the promotion was pushing how cheap these are. It might not be quite as cheap as some of the values at Disney.
To talk about price, so the wife and I were your mic is good. I have you turned down for the live
okay.
feed, so
Sorry about that.
Sorry, chat's saying your microphone was low. So we're watching the video, and she's like, "Oh wow, they're so cheap." It's like even if it was like $200, I'm like, "How come we can't get that at Disney?" I'm like, "You can, but you have to stay at Pop Century or an All Star, and you get it much cheaper if you want." And if you really look, I was watching like the outside of the hotels are very beautiful. It's what, 5 floors, 6 floors, or something else
Yeah,
like
there's
that, I believe.
750 rooms. I think it's 5 floors. I think.
I mean,
of
it's a
rooms.
legit hotel, right? It's
Yeah.
not a resort. It's like a hotel.
Yeah.
If you look at the pool in the back, it's a simple pool. There's no water slides or any extraneous type of stuff. It's a nice big space. There's a splash pad, whatever, but it's
Yep.
simple on the simple side. You have a bar. There's no sit down restaurant in there. There's a lot of quick service. So it really is a value. It compares very well to like Pop Century. So a lot of people are seeing a brand new resort. They're getting excited. It is still a value resort. So let's not get super excited about like comparing this to other Disney stuff. Don't compare, Caribbean Beach and their high prices to this. Compare, like you just said, Pop to this. I think that's a good comparison.
Yeah. So while I was looking at all these videos and like I'm trying to find, kind of pros and cons and is it worth it to do this?
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, it's a new hotel. It seems very sleek and stylish. Obviously all the rooms are updated with plenty of outlets and it just kind of, looks cool. It's walking distance to Epic Universe, like I said, and a lot of the rooms even have views of Epic Universe. I was definitely impressed by some of the
I don't know if I would really call them views. I mean,
Well,
you're watching the backstage of like
you're
Epic,
seeing the
right?
backside of certain things, but you can see roller coasters going by. You
Sure.
can see the lighting effects and in the dark universe effect and stuff like that. So you're definitely like within sight distance of that, which is
right. But
again,
it's not like you're at the top of Contemporary.
No,
into the park
exactly.
and have a view like
it's
that.
definitely not going, and
from
it's
a
not going to be the
distance.
same as at Helios and stuff like that. But it
Mhm.
still feels like you're pretty close, right?
Yeah.
They have different quick service options. They have a grab and go. They have a different option out by the pool, multiple bars, things like that. And while the pool isn't super themed or anything like that, it is pretty large and it has a very large hot tub area. So it seems like a nice area to kind of hang out or whatever like that. Now the cons, and one thing that I'm struggling with is this going to be ongoing cons or is this opening day jitter cons? And one of the things that really concerned me and made me say, like, what do I value when I'm picking a hotel was a lot of people were reporting on how noisy it was. Now, some of that could be because there's so many vloggers running around, and everyone's making a lot of noise. But there was reports, in some of the rooms they could really hear, and they even played it in the video, how the rain tapped on the tiles. It sounded pretty annoying.
Ridiculous.
And even like one of the videos or a written article actually from Jackie on the Diz, who I know her, she's one of the most positive people in the world. And she was like, I can't stay asleep. It's so noisy. I'm hearing things in the hallway, the guests next to me and stuff like that. The other issue was it just seems like they didn't do full testing of it. So it's giving off some negative vibes. So some of the rooms there was sand or soot coming out of the fixtures. They didn't have hot water. The staff weren't trained in the hotel because it wasn't ready for them. So they trained offsite. This was their first day. So there were a lot of kinks to be worked out. But
which is surprising to me because Lowe's is like a legit like hotelier. Like
I was a little surprised
they're not
too.
new to this.
Yeah, I guess it just took they couldn't get it finished. There was a burst pipe. You can't really account for that and that sort of thing. So, like I said, it was kind of like, well, do the pros outweigh the cons for this for me? And obviously, one thing I'm hoping maybe closer in we get some refreshed reviews of it, not just like the opening day ones.
Yeah.
But that noise really kind of worried me that if I'm down there and I'm trying to, having a full day at Epic and we have Destination D23 coming up, I don't want to be up all night because I'm hearing noise from all over the place. So I don't know if it's just people trying to be negative and find the things, or if it's really as bad as this. I don't know. We had a lot of people in Discord also say like, well, this hotel, I was surprised at how noisy it was, but this one actually, I was surprised how quiet it was. And so it's kind of interesting to hear. It's not always like the most expensive ones were absolutely quiet and the cheapest ones were noisy. It kind of varied a little bit too. So I don't know. We'll see. What were your reactions when you were watching all this?
I mean, to me, like you saw a lot of negatives all over the place, right?
Yeah.
But like to me, those are like opening day negatives that should have been caught with like a 30-day like test stay where like friends and family type of thing. So that's kind of like weird. Yeah. But in the long scheme of things, those should be cleaned up within a month anyway. So I'm not really concerned about that type of thing. Now, I think a lot of people are thinking that if they stay here, it's going to be better than what a value is. And it's not. So setting your expectations is proper. Obviously, you know all about it. So it's like you're not like going in there expecting like deluxe accommodations or anything else you're used to with some of the other Universal hotels that get really high marks, right, for amenities and style and all this type of stuff. So as long as you have the proper expectations, I think you're good. Would I stay here if I was doing a Universal? Sure, if the cost is right. I mean, like it looks like a perfectly fine hotel. Especially since a Universal vacation for me is probably not more than a couple days anyway.
Right.
If I was doing a full Universal stay on top of a Disney stay, would I stay there for a week? Absolutely not. I'd like when I go down to Florida and doing theme parks, I like to stay at a resort. So like to me, Art of Animation is going to be interesting because it's the first value I'm staying at for an extended period of time. So, but that's like super themed Disney and everything else. So I think we're going to get that resort feel with this, especially if we could just hop on the Skyliner and head over to different things like that. So that's that. Again, I can kind of dismiss the negatives on this. The only thing that would worry me is like I think what you're alluding to is if like the noise level is like a true thing. Like maybe it was just the one time or whatever. But if it's loud, that's going to be completely upsetting because there's probably going to be a lot of families that stay in this, right? And there's going to be kids running up and down. So who knows? Who knows? Let's wait and see, I guess.
So we'll have to see. So like I said, we're looking to do probably a couple nights. I have been pricing out these versus Helios and stuff like that. And at first I was like, oh, Helios, it'd be really cool, but it's a little pricey, but it's only 2 nights. And I was like, well, if these are like, so much cheaper and still pretty good. So I'm waiting to see if people are blown away by Helios. Maybe I'll suck it up and pay for the 2 nights for my wife and I. But if it's but we'll see.
Yeah, the only thing that kind of worries me here, or is confusing, I should say, is like the food. There are some reports that the food was great and looked awesome, and then I've seen some pictures of some of the food that's coming out, and it's just like, ugh. I'm assuming those get fixed over time. It's just like if it's the kitchen's like first day cooking it in place, I think you're going to have some issues doing that. So, if you're planning on staying there within the next 3 months for whatever reason, I just keep an eye out on like food reports and stuff like that on social media to see if they're the kitchen is learning their way around it and figuring things out. But that was the only other thing I noticed that was just kind of weird.
Yep, I agree. So
so
I think next segment is the construction update. So
yes. So I upped out again. We love spreadsheets. So I finally like, all right, this is going to be a long list. I want to catalog or record all these updates as we go through all these weeks leading up to all these things. So this I hope this spreadsheet can live like another 5 years until Villains opens. I think that'd be really neat. Just kind of seeing a track record of everything. And it was I realized after the second week of updating that it was just going to get really long if we could just house it in our show notes. So now it's in a spreadsheet that we pull in live into our show notes. So we're fancy and technical here. That being said, what we've decided to do is if there's a construction update that's like newsworthy, we really need to talk about it, we're going to talk it at the top and then rattle it off. And Phil, if people are listening, don't know that you're wearing a Muppet shirt. Now, why are you wearing a Muppet shirt today?
I'm wearing a Muppet Studios shirt because some news came out around the closure of Muppet's Courtyard, and it was a little bit earlier than I think a lot of us expected for it to be. So we do know that the whole Muppets Courtyard, the last day that you'll be able to do the Muppet Vision 3D and eat at Pizza Rizzo and kind of just be in the area is June 7th. So basically June 8th, you're going to see construction walls and all sorts of stuff like that go up. Mama Melrose is actually closing about a month earlier. Its last day is May 10th. So this is closing up, June before the summer starts. And, I pulled into our spreadsheet our predictions for like when everything was going to happen. And it's almost a year earlier than we thought it was going to be. We were predicting January Q1 of next year. We thought it would be open for a while. I think we thought they would be doing a lot of work on the gravity building for the new roller coaster and stuff, which is kind of backstage and not have to touch the current, the existing Muppets Courtyard for a while. But either that's not feasible. They're not able to do that, or else they're just going gangbusters and like, we got to get this down and get the new thing going as soon as possible. So I don't know. It made me start to wonder, like, well, when are they planning now for this to be done if they're closing it this soon? So
there's a lot of things that we might be able to glean from this. And this is only, I don't know, all of them could be true or half of them could be true. So my first inclination was it's closing early because the work that they need to do is too close to that building for guests to go in and be in a construction.
And one thing to keep the exits kind of in the back and stuff like that. So it'd be maybe too awkward to get people out of the exit area. I don't know.
Yeah. So, and it's very close to where they're going to have to do things. They have to demo. What is that? Like the gift shop that's right there? Is that no? So they got to demo that. And if they're demoing that, and that they might have to do some demo inside the Muppets 3D building for the conversion, and they're demoing the back part to start the gravity building. They're like, let's just do it all at once. So it might be a cost. Like people are complaining like, oh, they're just shutting it early just to save on operational costs, which I think is a ridiculous statement right off the bat, because I don't think Park Ops is going to close a 3D vision building that requires very little cast members versus like or an actual ride to save a couple bucks when it reduces capacity in the park. You just simply won't do that, and reduce the volume of lightning lanes that you can get in that park as well.
Right.
So what I think is happening is June 7th is going to be a date where we might see some other shows start opening up in the park.
That was one thing I thought too. Is because we do have 2 new shows that one reopening, The Little Mermaid, the updated version of that, and then obviously the Villain show. They're casting for that now, so I'm assuming at least one of them, probably The Little Mermaid, is going to be open either when this closes or before this closes, and then later you'll have business. So you're almost, obviously one's just coming back, but you're actually going to be increasing capacity a little bit by closing one thing and opening 2 things. And there is the actor that does Sweetums and stuff like that, so maybe they're moving over to one of the new shows or something like that. But yeah, I think that if anything, that gives us some guidance as to when at least the Little Mermaid's going to be opening.
So I think they are saving cost by maybe doing all the work at once rather than piecemealing it out, so they can kind of do everything and stuff like that. You got the construction zone consideration. I also think that we haven't seen the permitting yet for Rivers of America and all that other stuff starting, so that might be delayed a little bit.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't know if it's actually delayed a lot or it's that they're doing its normal thing and this is just normal also. This was the plan all along. That could be true also. But if they expect this to be the new Cars Land and Rivers of America to be delayed a couple months, they might just say, okay, we need to start on Monsters so we can slot that in a little bit earlier, because Cars Land might get pushed out past 2027, 2028 timeframe, and we need something coming in. So maybe they want to get started early. Maybe they're just, like you said, they're like, we need to add stuff. We need to look like we're doing things. Let's independently just go and do that. And just kind of, once the epic swell of excitement dies down in this year, in 2027, 2028, and 2029, they're just like, they're not trying to like perfectly place an attraction opening to increase guest count. It's just going to be a blitz, and they're just going to start releasing stuff. It's all guesswork at this point. We thought this was going to be open,
and that's what I was wondering. Because we were guessing, fall of 2027 for Tropical Americas, and then roughly a year later for Monsters Inc. But now that they're 9 months earlier than we thought they would close, could this even open up? Is everything accelerated 6 months or something like that, and this could open up the end of 2027, or is it that it actually is just going to take longer than maybe we thought it would? I don't know, but it's just interesting that all our plans. And then I guess the other flip side of this is, what does this mean for Rock and Roller Coaster? There's some thinking like, will they do that conversion first or not? Are they actually going to wait until now Monsters Inc. land is open before taking down Rock and Roller Coaster? I don't know, but now you're going 3 years without any Muppet presence in the parks. I don't know. It's going to be interesting. They've still been kind of radio silent. They still just said that the Muppets will be moving soon to Rock and Roller Coaster, but who knows what that means.
I mean, I think that they might want to wait a full year before they take Rock and Roller Coaster down again, right? Because it came back up just recently from all the significant downtime.
Relatively recently, yeah.
Was it last fall, I think?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember off the top of my head. So that goes down. I could see that. I think that my initial guess was it'll go down next year when it typically goes down for its maintenance. And I still don't think the swap over is going to be altogether complicated, right? The show building's basically empty with some just signage. They could slot in a new video right in there and change some of the props around. And I think the biggest hurdle is the ride vehicles, maybe give them a paint job or something else like that. So they got to take them off the tracks and do things with them. And then the show building on the outside, maybe they're going to change that and have some, Muppets hanging upside down out of that car or something else like that. Who knows? But I don't think that's going to take that much time. I think they can get that done in a space of 3 to 4 months if they really want to. Because there's they've already done the retrack. They don't have to they're not taking it down, doing the overlay and also using that time to do a refurb as well, which is sometimes that they would do that. They would refurb a lot because while it's down, because they probably did a lot of work on the track in Tiana's while it was down extensively. They don't have to do any of that stuff, right?
Right.
Because he just did all of that. So I think they can flip Muppets over. I think that is on its own timetable based off of we don't want to take the roller coaster down even more to do this right away.
Yeah.
So I think that's independent of everything else that's going on. That's my opinion anyway. I don't think I don't think there's like a chess match or like 4D checkers that they're playing to slot these things. I think that's just
Yeah, like you said, maybe it's just like as soon as they're ready to start, they're going to start, and there's probably a separate team working on all these new videos and songs and figuring out what pop stars are going to be a part of it and stuff like that. And when they're ready to go, they'll start working on that. One question I did have was, does this news, because we were predicting that Muppets and stuff would still be open this July when your family goes, does this impact your planning at all? Was this like, well, now there's one less thing to do in Hollywood studios, maybe we don't need as much time there? Or was this not really much of a big component in your planning?
Well, I mean, we're kind of forced for that week just because of kids' summer sports and other activities. So we have to go in July, and we can't go in August because of other things. So this was like a perfect little spot for it. It's definitely disappointing. I wanted to go on because I didn't go on in November. So I think I'll just go next summer because it's definitely going to stay open. I'm totally wrong with that. Now I'm kicking myself in the butt for not doing it. But no, it's not impacting me. It's just like I'm missing it by about like 6 weeks or so. So it's just like it's definitely a bummer. But I'm not.
I think it was Wheezy was there like the day before or the day like the 8th or whatever like that, and so he's like contemplating, can I shift my whole trip up a day just to see Muppets? But for you, it's like 6 weeks. It's not like moving it like a day or whatever. So
it's in the middle of the kids' swim season, so can't take off too much time. So other construction updates. I'm going to rattle this off.
Before we get there, I thought I would just mention, because I had been teasing out a little bit of a surprise that might happen on here. So impacting our plans is we decided to book a down and back trip.
Oh, so it finally went through. So what are the dates now?
So we are going down February 18th and back the 20th.
I know you were talking about that. Awesome. Yes. Do you have things planned, or are you just
no,
it's booked and then we got to figure it out?
Yeah, so it's booked. I will say it's probably, we're going over President's Week, which is when we normally do something, but everything has gotten so expensive. But this is probably 70% because we want to get out of the cold, and 30% to see Muppets. But we were able to find relatively cheap prices for flights that left those 2 days. And so that was kind of what is making this possible. Okay. And we're staying off property at like a Marriott property.
Well, no, is this you and your daughter, or you and the family?
This is everybody, all 5 of us.
Oh, wow, because I know you were talking about doing a potential down and back with your daughter.
Yeah, so that's separate. That we're doing, that's in July. That's still
okay.
on.
I didn't know if you moved the July date up to February. That's what surprised me. Okay.
No, so this is an all new trip. So this is all 5 of us. Going down for 2 nights, staying off property. Wow. And we have booked the after hours event for Hollywood Studios on the 19th. So that is when we'll get it in, and we'll get our Muppets in and get all the rides at night in. And we're as of now, we do have a reservation booked for Mama Melrose because we've never eaten there and it's going away. So we got to check that box.
You are inducing so much FOMO right now. It's ridiculous. How dare you, sir, have a good time with your family? That's awesome. I'm happy for you. That's great. So you're going to be there just 2 nights. So you're going to arrive, sleep, go to the park, sleep, go home. So roughly 2 travel days in the park day in the middle.
The park day in the middle, yeah. So it's an after hours thing. So we'll have the rest of the morning to do pool time, maybe Disney Springs. My wife was talking about it. Arrival day, we land at like 3 or so. I'm hoping to maybe go over to the Poly and check out the new restaurant there, and then watch Happily Ever After from the beach, and then come back, and then we can sleep in and stuff like that. And then the second day, our flight's not until like 4 p.m. So kind of, again, pool time in the morning and then head out. So it should be fairly, for kind of being a quick trip, it should be somewhat relaxing and that sort of thing. And yeah, we found, like I said, we found flights for about $200 a person, and just
that's not bad.
Yeah, let's do it, and let's get some warm weather and go swimming and stuff like that. It's been a lot of gray, some sicknesses in the family and stuff. We're like, we need to get out of here.
So now here's the thing: have you ever done a scramble drill with your whole family yet? Is that making you nervous? That would
a little bit. Yeah.
So be working through your anxiety between now and the 18th, huh?
Yeah. So maybe next week and stuff we can go through more of the plans. The only thing I will mention was I was going back and forth. I was like, oh, should we do the after hours, or should we do a full, like a regular day in the park? And like a day park ticket is cheaper than the after hours, right? So maybe if we added on Lightning Lane or whatever, that week the park tickets are so expensive. The day is like $20 more than the after hours.
No kidding.
Yeah. So it's like we're with Undercover Tourist, it was like 167 for the after hours and 187 for the park day.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see why you're doing after hours.
Yeah. So we're doing the after hours.
That's good. I like it. I can't wait to see as you go through the progression of doing your research for. You've never done Hollywood Studios after hours, have you?
No, the only one we've done is
Epcot,
is
right?
Epcot. Yeah, that's the only after hours we've done, and then we've done the deluxe hours at Epcot and Magic Kingdom, but we haven't done
Those
an
don't
after
count.
hours. Yeah, we
Those
haven't
don't
done
count.
an after hours at Hollywood Studios.
I'm really curious to see as you go through and like study like all the things that you can do, how you think you're going to shove your family through everything in one day. I can't wait. I can't wait to see because I think you have an excuse to go commando mode just for those. What is it?
Because it's
6
only for
hours?
like so we can get in at 7. Like the actual after hours is 9:30 to 12:30, and we can get in at 7.
Okay, so it's 5.5 hours then, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I can't wait to see how you think you can trudge along everything and like where do you stop and smell the roses? Because I bet you could do all the rides and get done within the first 2.5 hours with the population in the park, I would imagine. Or at least the highlights, I should say.
Yeah. The only thing is we do have to fit in because Muppets, I think it's been closing at 8. It hasn't been open in the extra hours. So we have to make sure we get that in like as soon as we get there.
Pronto.
Yeah. So that's the plan, is to go do Muppets right away, then try to have a relatively quick at meal at Mama Melrose to check that out, and then we'll figure that out. And like I said, we'll talk about more maybe on a future episode because I have some debates in my head on how we're going to handle the strategy for the after hours and stuff like that.
Glenn in chat's got a
know.
really great adult trip going on. Boardwalk Villas, Epcot, Magic Kingdom fireworks cruise. My sister did that too. That's on my bucket list. I'm gonna have to start like as we get closer to my trip. I'm thinking like April-ish or so. I'm gonna start doing a list of like the extras that we've never done, so we can make the trip feel a little bit different. Like we did on our adult trip, we did all those Animal Kingdom tours. I want to see if we can kind of do something with that.
Yeah,
so
we did the ferry one for Magic Kingdom, but we haven't done the private one. We have done a private one with like it's up to 10 people for Epcot for seeing Illuminations. But we haven't done the Magic Kingdom.
I'm going to take a look at that. Okay, are we moving on now?
Yeah, that was my surprise.
Not to rush your thing, but we're going to be talking about this like every week now.
Yeah, exactly. So it's only 3 weeks away, so.
Okay, for 2 weeks then.
Which is definitely the quickest I've ever booked a trip before heading down.
Yeah, this is definitely going to be an experience.
Yeah.
Okay, so we had a debate of the value of hoppers versus non-hoppers, right? So Ryan W. I think it was Ryan W. on Discord was talking about his upcoming trip and whether or not to do hoppers. He's got young family also. I kind of chimed in. I'm like, you definitely want to do hoppers as the kids get older and you kind of lose the strollers. Even though Matt wants to use strollers all the way up to age 13 for the kids, which I'm gonna make fun of him forever for that one. However, so I was like, you definitely want to do hoppers. You can kind of live in property, and it's really good. And you, on the other hand, like to have your set days and not have the expense, and you can save the $90 times 5 on other things that might elevate your stay. So I want to kind of go through my reasoning of why hoppers. Like, what are the pros and cons of hoppers from my point of view that's pro hoppers? You are the con of, I don't know if you're anti-hoppers. That sounds a little bit too negative, but you're pro single park ticket, I guess we can say, right? Just to give you an idea, the cost, like I said before, is $90 per ticket. If you do 3 days or under, it's cheaper. I think it's like $80. I can't remember. Anyway,
I was looking it up quick, but it seemed like for pretty much every option I looked at, maybe only 1 or 2 days it was less, but for everything else it was like $90.
Basically, 4 days and on, it's always $90 no matter what. I think when you get to like 2 or 3, it's slightly different, but it's within $5, right? Yeah. So my pro for hoppers, right? So my adult trip, when I go back and listen to the trip report, it was pro hopper only because it allowed us to kind of flex around property. We've never really done that before, right? The only time we used hoppers before was back in 2019. We had hoppers for the free dining promo, and my wife and I managed to go back to Magic Kingdom after a Hollywood Studios day, and my mother was on the trip, watched the kids, and we went off by ourselves to kind of go. That's the only time we've taken advantage of it. So now that when we came back for our adult trip, it was really nice to dip your toe into a park, go on a couple of rides, leave, go somewhere else to another park for lunch, leave, decide where you want to go for your extra your nighttime spectacular, kind of go that. So we want to transition that with the kids, and maybe we split up, maybe we go to different parks if that's what we want to. So to me, I think that's really going along the lines of finding the vacation in the vacation where if you have just like, we have 2 Magic Kingdom days. We have the first day and the last day. If we don't get anything that we've done here, we can get it done the last day, but like you're really pressured to do that versus now we can go anywhere at any time. You give the ability where you're not crunched to do a certain thing a certain day. Because maybe Magic Kingdom you have 2 times or Epcot you have 2 times, but there's going to be some parks you only have 1 day at. You don't want to be like, this is my Animal Kingdom day, and I'm not going to be able to see Animal Kingdom for another year or until our next trip or whatever that is. So I like that. That takes a lot of pressure off of touring, and it allows me to relax. And my wife's thankful for this, to like leave the park and kind of do some pools or go somewhere else and not be park type of thing. So that's basically my pro, is allows more vacation to vacation, takes pressure off the choices that you have to make on that day, and kind of lets, you could do whatever you want to do given that time. So it's more spontaneity to your vacation. So what is your take on the pro single park ticket?
Yeah. So, and it's not so much that I'm like anti park hoppers. If we've had them a couple times in the past, I know we used to get the military tickets and they included it, and it was nice to have. I think it's just for us, it's not necessary, and it's an added expense that we would rather spend elsewhere. We can figure out how many days we want to do each park and get in. I totally get what you're saying. It gives you a little bit more flexibility, especially if you don't get to anything. I know when we've had it, I've kind of been like, well, how are we going to leverage this? How can we use it and maximize it the whole much and stuff, versus seeing it as a freeing thing. It almost felt like an extra thing I have to get value out of.
You got to let go, Phil. You got to let go.
And maybe, in the future I'll be better about that, or if it's just me and my wife or something like that. But, for us, it was, you go in the morning, then if you want to take a break, and then we go back. I mean, I know, yes, it's nice to be able to hop to Epcot, and especially I think if we were ever staying at like a Crescent Lake hotel, it would probably make more sense. Right now we're not totally in love with the setup or the shows for the 2 nighttime shows, so it's not like, oh my god, I got to get in Luminous 3 times in my trip or something like that.
Sure.
So that's not as pressuring to us. And for us, I just sort of looked at like, okay, so $90 per ticket, that's $450 for my family to add on hoppers. What else could we do for that? So at Caribbean Beach, I looked at the lights. It's like, if we stayed for 5 nights, it's like $1,400. At Pop, it would be about $1,700 for 2 rooms. So that's about $368. So instead of staying at, like, squeezing our family into 1 room at Caribbean Beach for less than the hopper cost, we could get 2 rooms at Pop and split out that way. Hoop-de-doo Review for category 2 would be $370 for our family to do it. So that would less than the cost of hoppers. We could do the cost of behind the scenes tour and Caring for Giants. We could do 2 tours instead of hoppers. And we could add on a 5th day. I looked it up. 4-day with hoppers is $688. 5-day 1 park is $661. So it's cheaper to do 5 days than add hoppers onto 4 days, just as an example. So for us, I think there's just other things we would rather do with that money. And like I said, if I had it, I would feel like I kind of needed to, well, I'm choosing to do this instead of doing Hoop-de-doo, instead of doing something else. So now I need to make sure I'm getting value out of it. And, I think it'd be great, if we have annual passes or something like that, where it's like no big deal if you only use it once or twice during your vacation. But I would feel like I needed to use it at least majority of the days. And any day where we wound up only going to 1 park, I kind of be like, man, I kind of wasted having the park hopper that day.
So I'm learning to let go, right? So all your points are excellent, right? So in order for hoppers to work where you're not going nuts, it's just like you already pay for it and you're like, I just go wherever I wanted to go if I feel like it, right? I think you have to make a game out of it, at least with kids. Like, okay, what are we doing today? And you pick 3 things. If it's 3 different parks, it's 3 different parks. If it's just 1 park, it's 1 park, that sort of thing. And I think to me, it's just basically a sunk cost. That's how I'm thinking about it. It's a sunk cost to have a more relaxing vacation where we're not pressured to do everything because we only have 1 Hollywood Studios day, right? So you made a point of going like, okay, I've got a 4-day park ticket, but I could pay for a 5th park for that same amount of money. To me, that's just saying I only get 1 park now that I get to make sure I get everything done and I'm not pressured. So most likely it's a Magic Kingdom day that you're doing twice, right?
Probably.
It's the most stuff you can get done. And like, okay, now you're like, okay, I got to make sure I do all these other things. But you still at Hollywood Studios, like, I didn't get a chance to go on Tower of Terror. We slept in late. We didn't get to go on Rise. Or you're in Animal Kingdom, like, you're feel like, you leave early, you did everything. Sometimes you feel great, but like, you know what? I really wish I can come back and get Satuli's Canteen. We didn't get to make it because we ran out to go swimming. We just didn't feel like going back. I got to wait another year to hit up Satuli Canteen, which happened to me, right? We just haven't been able to get it there, that type of thing. So that's how I kind of view it. Now, if you're budgeted and you need to spend X amount of dollars, that is a proper way to think about it, right? I mean, that's the only other reason why you don't go hoppers, because with that money you could do all those other experiences. So it's definitely like, there's no wrong answer here, obviously. So I think to me, the only other valid use of that money would not be more park days, but better tours, I guess, like those different paid opportunities.
And the other one,
activities, I guess,
that I did look up that I didn't mention was Lightning Lane Multipass. Obviously, it varies by day, but I looked up, just kind of like a week in July, and to get it for each of the 4 parks, like if we had a four park test, the total would be about $430 for my family to have Lightning Lane Multipass for every day. So that's almost the same thing too. So again, I don't know if it's just because with all these different upcharges at Disney, it kind of feels like it's hard to do everything. So you kind of have to pick and choose and maybe take out of this pot. And so that's just another thing you could do instead of that.
The only thing that I would say against Lightning Lane, having hoppers makes me feel like I don't need a multipass at all, because I'll probably, when my vacation coming up, I'll probably get a Lightning Multipass for one Magic Kingdom day, but I won't get it for anything else. Cause like, okay, my mother really wants to go on Remy. Like, that's she's only been on a handful of times. That's her favorite rides. One of her favorite movies. She's got a little Ratatouille on her car, everything else like that. That's her jam. And I'm like, okay, well, we're on the Skyliner. If the kids and the wife wants to sleep in and kind of get a rough start, if you want to wake, I'm like, you know me, like, I'll go rope drop every single day and go to close every single night. Like, I go to my mother. I'm like, hey, you just want to sneak out, grab some coffee, go on Remy, and then just leave and go back and bring back breakfast for everybody. We can start our day. To me, that's awesome. That's an awesome thing. So because I get on Remy, because I rope drop it and just leave, then I'm like, what else is the point of getting multipass at Epcot, right? We could probably get on every other attraction if we rope drop another day, do something else, or we go in, we do 2 things, and then we leave because it's early in the morning, and then we're not struggling for our one Epcot day to make sure we hit up all those things. So that's my only point with Lightning Lane. I think it's honestly, I think the value of Lightning Lane Multipass goes down the more days you're at the parks.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And
like you said, the more flexibility. And I do have to say, now that the kids are getting older and there are different things they want to do, how we've even, within a park split up at times, as that evolves, and now all of a sudden maybe more comfortable letting them go to a different park on their own and stuff like that, I could definitely see more value in having that. Like, I'm thinking about my oldest, who, like, Fantasmic's her favorite show. She might want to see that a couple times during a week, where the rest of us are like good with one, like that type of a thing. So I definitely see the value of it. And as we're getting older,
let me ask you a question now on that scenario. How old does she have to be where you feel comfortable letting go?
Yeah, I don't know.
By herself.
I don't know.
Because to me, it's like, never.
I know, but she'll be 16 in 3 weeks. So it's like, if I trust her to drive a car, I guess I can trust her to take the Skyliner, right? Or whatever. I don't know.
Well, I'm not worried about her getting there and getting back. Personally, it's just like, it's your little girl and like these giant crowds. Like, I don't know. That terrifies me. Like, that's going to be my nightmare.
By the way, Stitch in Minnesota's in the chat, and they mentioned that they like having the flexibility park up, but they said they're only paying for 2 to 3 people. It's obviously a little easier than paying for 5. But yes, I think everything makes your trip a little bit easier, and you just kind of got to pick and choose where you want to have. And if maybe there is going to be some trip where we're going to value that flexibility more than maybe doing a table, just cut a table service out. The flip side of all my cost comparisons is you could say, like, okay, well then skip doing Hoop-Dee-Doo or skip something, and then it covers the cost of this. And maybe there will be a trip where we want to do it. Exactly. Yeah.
I think the only other consideration that you have to make, and I think that's important, is that there's a lot of transportation involved, right? So I think hopping is highly effective if you're on the monorail or if you're on the Skyliner, where you can dip into our park and back. Otherwise, it's waiting for a bus. It's a 10 to 20 minute, depending on where you're staying, bus ride to any one of these parks. You ultimately start spending, like, again, I brought it up on our adult vacation when we were at the Animal Kingdom Lodge. a bus to Hollywood Studios or Epcot was 20 minutes. And if you want to go back to the resort and then go back somewhere else, all of a sudden you're now 1 hour and 20 minutes in a bus for that day. And that's a lot, and that stinks. So I think transportation, if you want to do hoppers and take advantage of them without driving yourself nuts, consider how are you getting to and from the parks. Or if you're made of money, you could take a minivan everywhere, right?
Yeah.
And just get dropped off at the front. Why not?
Why not?
But that's actually more money though at that point. All right, I want to get on. I want to get on Wheezy's topic because we've got about 20 minutes, and we got a lot of cool stuff that we want to go over. Or is this the last thing? This is our last thing, isn't it?
Yep.
Okay, awesome. So let's do this. This will be our DVC engagement for the week. Talking about must-have food items for each park. And I just didn't realize I didn't copy down our DVC engagement from last week. And I know a lot of people.
Yeah, I'm looking at the Discord server. So
All right,
we do
so
have a couple of responses to that. So if we have time, we can hit into that.
Awesome. Yes. So, okay. So the premise was must have food item in each park. So this could be a snack. This could be a meal. This could be anything that you have to eat. You have to hit up food wise in each park. And just to remind everybody, the premise, he is a travel agent. He's dealing with a lot of folks that might be going to Disney for the first time. And he likes to give advice and help people, as any good planner might. And this is a totally different question for what you would suggest somebody that's been to the parks quite a bit, maybe not has tried something. This is for the must-haves for each park, for each person. So it's just for the parks. It's not resorts or anything else, just inside the parks. Phil, this list can go on forever.
Yeah.
Right? There's so many different things. So I'm going to allow us to answer maybe a top 3 or so.
Oh,
we can expand it, or you could do one. Right? It doesn't have to be 3.
I will say I tried to pick one that was kind of like, this is the thing you have to get your first time going to Magic Kingdom, going to Epcot, whatever.
Well, let's go with Magic
Kingdom.
For
some I was more successful at picking one than others.
All right, go ahead.
So for Magic Kingdom, there's definitely a lot of things that could fit this. For me, I think you have to get a Dole Whip. To me, that's the quintessential like Disney thing. I know it's available more places now, but it's not the same as getting it in Adventureland and all the different options they have stuff there. So for me, Dole Whip is the one must thing to do. I did say you could go with some of the other classics like a Mickey bar or Mickey pretzel and things like that. But for me, I don't know, Magic Kingdom, Adventureland, Dole Whip is kind of like iconic.
See, to me, I don't disagree with it because Dole Whip's on my top 3 list, right? There were so many for Magic Kingdom. I'm thinking about, and you hit up the second one, was a Mickey bar. I don't think there's any really iconic food in Disney World or Magic Kingdom, excuse me. Unless maybe you want to talk about like a hot dog from Casey's, but I don't know if I would recommend that to a first person because that's a lot of food to eat.
Yeah,
when you're walking around Magic Kingdom. But Dole Whip is a sneaky one for me because would I actually, now that I think about it, would I actually recommend that to a first time park goer? Because they'll be like, "What's the big deal? It's just ice cream, pineapple ice cream. It's whatever." So I think that iconicism, is that even a word, of it might be lost on a new time goer, and like maybe it's like their second or third time as that maybe they become a Disney fan and they start kind of investigating like all these traditions people have, how old the Dole Whip is, maybe whatever. That might be like the thing that they get the second time. So you can be part of like the cool kids club or the Disney club type of thing. So I would probably list snacks as my first time, like just safe things. So you don't have to explain them, right? It's the Mickey bar, Mickey pretzel, and like popcorn or something else like that.
Exactly.
Like pick one of those 3 things. Again, some people might recommend like the turkey legs. I probably wouldn't recommend that for a first time park goer. And I'm trying to think if there's anything else.
There's the like the cheeseburger
churros.
spring rolls. I know are a big thing for Magic Kingdom for people.
I have to get them every single time I go to Magic Kingdom. Those are one of my favorites, but I don't know if I would recommend that for a first time person. So I think it's just like the 3 popular snacks. Okay, what about Epcot, Phil? That's
Epcot's the one probably I struggled with the most because I'm not sure if there is like an iconic Epcot snack now that they don't have like the handwich and stuff like that.
Sure.
I think the correct answer is probably almost our first time is you need to like graze the food booths at like whatever festival's going on while you're there. But trying to pick like a specific item, I picked the croque glacé from La Artisans des Glacés in France. I think you got to get something from France. There's so many good food items there, and I love that the bun with the ice cream in the middle and the sauce and how it's made. It's kind of unique. It's super tasty. It feels like kind of you're walking around France with that. Other ones I thought of was either the maple popcorn from Canada.
Yes, that's one of mine.
or just getting a baguette from the hell from in France,
Mm.
because if that's like kind of a fun thing. But I don't know. I struggled a little bit with Epcot. I know there's a lot of things people like the caramel stuff in Germany and things like that. But oh yeah, Glenn's in the chat. He mentioned the school bread in Norway. I know that's a popular one, but some of those ones I'm not as big on, so it's a little hard for me to totally recommend them. I struggle.
So
I admittedly struggled a bit with Epcot.
So Epcot's a little bit easier with me, right? You have to get a margarita in Mexico if you can drink, right? So that's
That's true. That's a
always
good one. Yeah, that's
you
for
always
if
have to do
these are
that.
adults. Yeah,
You have to visit France and get either go eat at La Hall or go get a crepe from the window, right? I think those are two things that you can go. The maple popcorn, I think, is like a great snack that you could go to. The rest of the front of the park, I don't think there's anything iconic unless you want to list like popcorn and stuff like that.
yeah.
Obviously, if there's a festival going on, you have to explain to them like festivals, or just like, here's the app, go watch a couple videos, pick a bunch of 5 things that you like and go sample them. I think that's the strategy, but that's the obvious one, right?
Yeah.
So I think your mainstays are the ones I listed, is just basically into the two quick service areas in France, the popcorn, and of course margarita. Depending on your day, whether you start left or right, you figure it out. So if you want to end with the margarita,
Yeah,
or you want to
I
start with
didn't
the
think
margarita.
about adult beverages. I was thinking food wise, but I think going to La Cava or just getting one of the margaritas at Mexico is pretty iconic for your trip to Epcot for adults. Yep.
I mean, you could have your kids with you and have the margarita. You can make them wait. You got to time it properly so the mariachi band is playing. So you got to go listen to the music and go dance over here. I'm going to go
Could do
online over this way.
yeah.
So I think it's good. All right, what are we doing for Hollywood Studios? This is another tricky one, I think.
Yeah, for this one, I pretty quickly went to the Ronto wrap. I think it's such a fun thing, kind of unique to Galaxy's Edge. It fits that in that area so well. It kind of forces you to go into the marketplace and stuff like that. So I pretty quickly went on that. I'm not sure if that's the right answer, because there's obviously that's more like a Star Wars thing versus the whole park. But that was one thing I went to, that if that's something that if somebody was going to that park for the first time, it was like, oh, what should I grab to eat? I would definitely mention that.
So there's really no good options here, right? Ronto Wrap is one of my personal favorites, so like I would suggest that, but it's not like this is a must-have for a first-time use. I would say, like, if you're hungry at Hollywood Studios, this is a good option to get, but it's not like you need to go here and get that, right? Because it is spicy. It does take a certain,
It's not
your palate
necessarily
has to be
everybody's
qualified
going to
for it,
like that.
essentially.
Yeah.
So again, one of my favorite margaritas on property is at was it Sunrise? I forget the name of the place. It's right by one of the quick service places over there. But yeah, I'm really blanking for Hollywood Studios.
The only other thing I could think of, and I don't know if it's one or two things, but going to Woody's Lunchbox and getting either those toaster pastry things or the potato barrels and things like that. Those are kind of unique to that location and are kind of
it's a good option. I've never had them, so I couldn't recommend them. The one thing that my kids always get, or always asking for, is those first time we had them, now they want to get them at every park, is like the Minute Maid, like frozen ice.
Oh, the frozen ice things. Yeah.
They love digging at those things, and I always like it because I can get a Jack Daniel's slushie at the same cart, so that's always fun. So that's kind of one of our snacks that we always get there. For some reason, the kids always get cotton candy at Hollywood Studios. I don't know why. I absolutely hate them getting cotton candy because then their fingers get all nasty, and then they start touching things.
That seems like a big popular one. I think we've gotten that too, especially when we're waiting for Fantasmic. I feel like cotton candy is a big one there.
Yeah. So that's that. So last but not least, Animal Kingdom. I think this is like an easy one.
I just said go to Satuli.
Yeah,
and get one of the bowls there.
Yeah, I mean that's best quick service on property in my opinion. Glenn is bringing up the churros at Nomad Lounge. I don't know if I could recommend Nomad Lounge or Tiffin's just because it's a little bit fancy and you're kind of with kids. It's probably tough. I wouldn't want to bring kids to Nomad Lounge because everybody sitting there just want to enjoy a drink and a beverage in a quiet moment, and my kids would be running around, and I'm like, all right, we got to go at this point. Satuli Canteen, absolutely. I don't think there's any other quick service restaurant I would like say you have to go here, other than maybe like La Halle in France.
Yeah.
Like Flame Tree Barbecue is another spot that I think you could get. I say, even though Satuli's open for breakfast, and when I've never been there for breakfast, I think there's a lot of good like coffee and like egg sandwiches. There's a really awesome biscuit that you can get that's like it's got like a biscuit that, and inside there's like sausage, cheese, and like jam. I forget what it's called, but it's absolutely fantastic. It's like on the way into like Asia,
Okay.
from Discovery Island, and um, they actually serve, if you want a decent margarita, there's the one from the area by where you're heading towards Dinosaur. There's like a little quick service stand there that's good. Do not go to the one in Africa. Those are not very good margaritas. And then again, I'm thinking like Harambe Market's got really great options there. Like Animal Kingdom is great for food. So I would tell them like go anywhere in Animal Kingdom for food. You're going to enjoy it almost maybe more than Epcot. I don't know if that's sacrilegious at this point, but like there's quality
That's
food.
definitely the park where you need to tell people like don't just go and get like pizza or hot dogs or something like that.
Do
There's
not
a
go to
lot
Pizza
of,
Fari.
you
Yeah,
know, like
go
that type of
anywhere
thing.
else. Anywhere else. I think it's Satuli Canteen is number one. Anything else is just kind of gravy, but like Satuli is like one of the best places.
The other thing that jumped to me that is one of my go-to there though is they have Dole Whip and you can get rum poured over it. That is super tasty. But
Where's that?
So it's at Tamu, I think is the name of it.
Okay. Yeah.
So you can get either dark rum or coconut rum, and they have like different things like that over the Dole Whip. But I felt bad, like, okay, I'm giving you 4 suggestions. One is Dole Whip, and one is Dole Whip with rum.
That's fine.
Yeah,
that is fine.
Well, you're giving you're giving the margarita in each park.
Well, look, I have no shame. Like, I mean, this is what you got to do, right? The one place I've always wanted to try. Now I'm derailing because I'm thinking of all the delicious food there. There's a quick service place right by Kali River, and I can't remember the name of it, but it's like around the corner from the entrance, and there's seating right across from it. But it's got a lot of like, it seems like you need a specific taste for food because it's a little spicy.
Is that just the Yak and Yeti quick service?
Is it?
Yeah,
well, it is right there. Yes, it is actually. Yeah.
Yeah.
I could never get my kids to eat anything on the menu. My wife's like, I want to go somewhere else. I'm like, okay, because then we go to Satuli and I'm happy. So, but yeah, I keep saying this. I wish the only reason why I would love to be a local there is I just want to eat all the food. Like when we went through like all the different, was it 2 weeks ago that we did the in-park restaurants? Just realized there's a lot of places I want to eat. So my wife might be angry with me for our trip planning because all of a sudden our food bill is going to go through the roof. I mean,
I did see like a little video meme, not meme, I don't know what it, like a short YouTube short or something where somebody was like, I'm hungry, I want a snack. It's like, oh wait, I live right next to Disney World. And she like literally goes out in her car, like drives over and gets like, a Mickey pretzel or something like that. Instead of just like going to your fridge or your closet, your pantry or something like that. She went to Disney to like get her snacks. I was like,
that's
all right,
awesome.
That's a little unfair.
So just remember, for our DBC engagement this week, we want you guys to fill in the must-have food items for each park for a brand first-time guest for each one of the parks. We'll put it in Discord and obviously reminder for all our social media at the DBC Pod on all the different platforms. I engage a lot on Blue Sky. Phil, you do a good job on Twitter and Instagram and all the other fun places. Yep. That being said, we had a DBC engagement from last week. What are some highlights, sir?
Yeah, so we asked people to fill in the same kind of questions that we answered last week. So for your in-park dining, what is your favorite signature, fancy place to eat? What do you think is most underrated? What surprised you the most? What's your favorite character meal? And what haven't you done but you want to do? So I know Ryan W. commented, favorite signature is Hollywood Brown Derby. Most underrated is Tony's Town Square, saying the food here is legitimately good, which is interesting. I know it's much maligned, although I have heard of late more positive
within the
things
last
than
year,
in the,
right?
Yeah, last year, year plus or so. Yeah. Biggest surprise is San Angel Inn, which I know there's a few people have said that. That's another one that I think got a lot of negative views in the past, that I think people are actually giving a little bit more of a chance and realizing it actually has some good things going for it. Favorite character meal is Crystal Palace, and haven't done but want to is Tiffin's, which I think seems to be a pretty popular one for people.
It's a great restaurant. It looks great in there. Yeah.
Mama Six said their favorite fancy one is San Angel Inn. So again, coming up there is another popular one. Most underrated is Liberty Tree Tavern. I agree with that one. We've only done it once. We did it with some friends. We had an absolutely great meal there. I think it is served family style, so you kind of have to want the food that's included. But we had a great meal there.
I would
Surprised
love
you?
to go there, but my wife being a vegetarian makes that really very difficult.
Yeah, there's
I know
definitely.
there's vegetarian options, but it's a pain in the butt to do that.
Sometimes, yeah. Surprised you most, Yak and Yeti, which was the same thing that I had. That surprised me the most. They've only
I
done.
think the uptick in Yak and Yeti's guess is all because of you going there and reviewing and how amazing it was the first time you went there.
Their character meal, they've only done one and they didn't have a good experience. This was actually one of the examples of the tell us your worst dining experience. One was Cinderella's Royal Table. So maybe they can try another one in the future. One that they haven't done but they want to yet is actually character meals, Garden Grill and 1900 Park Fair. So hopefully their next trip they get to check out a different character meal and try to right that wrong a little bit.
Hope so.
And Wheezy was the other one that said something. Signature is Les Célèbres, which was one of the ones that I was my want to do that I haven't done yet. Underrated. He put Chefs de France. Never had a bad meal there. Surprise was Mama Melrose, which is good news for me since we're going to be checking that out. So I'm gonna have to ask him what I need to order. Haven't done any character meals. Wants to do is Roundup Rodeo Barbecue, which is actually another one that I'd like to do too. Especially the sides and stuff. I know, and Matt I know has raved about that one as well. So, yeah, I think those were most of the answers.
And Glenn and Chaz is talking about underrated is Traditorio Al Forno with the lasagna. He calls it life changing. I'm
Wow.
gonna go. That is bold for lasagna at Walt Disney World. Is it life changing because it changes your life as you leave because it's so heavy sitting in your stomach at 90-degree heat? I don't know. I'm always afraid of Italian food in Florida just because of the heaviness of pasta and me wanting to do things. All right. I think that's great. I think we had a great show. Did I forget anything, Phil? I always have to ask.
No, just a reminder of our social media. We are at the DBC Pod everywhere. And of course, join the Discord server.
And okay, I think we're going to give this week's podcast to Glenn. He was awesome today, and he participated quite a bit in chat, along with everybody else that came in. So we appreciate you watching, listening. Remember, we are live every Monday at 9 o'clock Eastern, so come join us. And if you can't make it, join the Discord server where we're engaged and have our DBC engagement every week and have a good time during the week yelling at the news as we do every single day. That being said, thank you for watching, listening, everybody. We'll catch you next week.
Take care, everyone.